Welcome to episode 2 of Ember Episodes, our weekly podcast where we discuss all things DeFi, as well as our digital agency token and our commitment to being a light in the dark alleys of crypto. My name is JR. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ember, and I will be your host today. I am joined by my partner, Matt, aka Batman, as most of you know him by. He is also our talented and trusted CTO. So this episode is titled Meet the Founders. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to talk a little bit about ourselves in and outside of Ember, and really what drives us, how we got here, what we do, and honestly what we like to kind of do in our spare time. So you get to kind of know people behind the mask in Batman's case. So but who are we kidding, none of us have spare time. So um regardless, we're going to get into a little bit about our backgrounds as professionals, what brought us to DeFi, how we built a business from it, and what we're aiming to do, and then ultimately what we like to do a little bit outside of that. As much as Matt would like to share, I know I'll share some tidbits about my personal life, because in the end of the day, we're all people, and we're all here to drive a really strong mission and create opportunity in the space and start breaking some boundaries. So, with that said, Matt, why don't you get us started, and tell us a little bit about your background as a software engineer?
Yeah, so how's it going? Matt, aka Batman, aka all kinds of other random things. So I've been into computers since a very young age. My dad actually used to build them back when I was in grade school. So been around them all my life. Was always intrigued by them. Was always into art and design and stuff as well. And got into high school and figured out what could I do with my life. And I was like, I like art, I like computers, we do web design. So that started there back in the days of LiveJournal and MySpace and all that, where you can customize it. Went to school for it, uh, jumped straight in right out of college. And so I've been in anything from started off as like kind of web design into front end dev, into software dev, and now I'm a principal software engineer. So almost 2 decades of experience coding, anything from little e-commerce sites, blogs, software applications, mobile apps. I've built all kinds of things.
So, just to jump in on that, so like for anybody listening that thinks, they see the work that you produce for Ember, for our clients, which we'll get into later. When you hear the word software engineer, like, naturally, I think you're engineering software, like you're writing code for a software program that I open on my computer. So, like, where is the line drawn in software engineering versus like front end development, or are they really one and the same and just different titles? Like, can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's a great question or thing to point out. And I'll start off by saying, like, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was a very clear difference, right? There really wasn't any web-based applications. It was all, you either had a website, which was mostly informational, maybe a little bit of functionality in there, like a contact form or something, and then you had like apps you would actually install on your machine, right? There was no blend there. But into the early 2000s and beyond, it's turned into more where there's applications that we do actually in a browser now, right? Like you've got Zoom you can do online, Slack, you've got social media, you've got entire applications and programs that you can run in a browser. Like there's project management software, there's to-do lists, there's you've got websites for sports and for TV, Netflix, Hulu, right? You've got all these things, and it's not like you just go somewhere and you're just reading a blog post. It's like you're actually interacting it, you're using it. So that's the crossover between web design being something that's a little bit more just static, or like an e-commerce, like a Shopify site or something like that, versus a actual software developer where they're building out these functional applications that you're using. So it's way more intensive. And so back around 2010 is when that transition really started to take over. And now I would venture to say we probably spend more time on software applications that are web-based than we do actual programs we install on our computer, right? Or if they are things we can install, there's a web-based version as well, such as email and other things.
And I mean,
Um,
is that a lot of stuff? Everything you kind of went through. Is that the kind of thing you do in your day job? For those of you listening in that don't know Matt, obviously, he's mentioned multiple times that he has a day job outside of Ember at the moment, like a lot of people in DeFi. I'm one of the rando cases that's crazy enough to go out there and try it. And Matt's smarter than me, so no, I'm kidding. But honestly, it's awesome to be able to have that foundation while you build out, what you want to be your future and why you build that dream out, and I think there's something to be said about that, both from a stability standpoint, but also from a learning standpoint and a team environment standpoint, because I think, in your experience, building, not just front end websites from your agency perspective, through, your private firm, but also in a team environment, like what experience would you say that kind of brings to the table for Ember that you feel like others may not know or realize?
Yeah, that's yeah. So with my day job, it's always been more of a software developer perspective. So
Mhm.
I've worked in Fortune 100 companies. I've built applications that I would venture to say at least 50% of Americans have interacted with or used at some point in time. And so I've worked on much larger teams, much larger products. I mean, you're talking applications that are, cybersecurity and fraud and sports and all those things where like you're talking multi-million dollar projects that I've worked on.
Mhm.
So that level of, I guess, where I bring it into Ember is my knowledge and everything I've picked up and everything I've learned over the years working in those environments is how can I bring that to Ember and offer that to our clients, our team, our token, our agency. What things can I cross over from my day job world into how we run this business. So things like our our daily stand-ups. That's something that's very much an agile methodology, which I'm trained in and I have certifications for. Things like automation and architecture are things that I've built out, and I have a good solid history doing all of those. So I'm able to not just look at a website and make it look nice and build it out like the mock-up shows, but I go much deeper into behind the scenes of, okay, how can I make this where it's reusable, where there's things that we can easily improve or expand on, scale up or down
Mhm.
as needed. So I think that's kind of where that starts to come in is just the long-term vision of those items and
Oh, that's
where they
awesome.
will eventually go.
Well, it's funny, like, on the coattails of that, one thing that I think in any like bad situation in life, right? Just to jump to a quick subject, in any negative situation that we've gone through, so like take COVID, right? It forced employers to create remote work environments for their teams, right? It enforced small businesses to learn to work remotely, and so obviously things like Zoom and all the teleconference apps clearly got great use through that year. What I think it also created was a little bit more flexibility, and that's one thing I can say that I'm thankful for. It's tough starting any business, right? But when you start with somebody, with anybody, which is 99% of our team that have other obligations, you traditionally only would get a portion of their time, and I think in DeFi you find a lot of that. You find a lot of people have their toe in the pond, for at least what we found, but they say they're full time, but they dabble here, or they well, we're running behind and just give us another week. And one thing I'm thankful for with Matt is his employer, honestly, is for his day job, is they've been super flexible. And I think if anything good came from COVID, that whole debacle, it would be kind of the reality that some employers needed to be a little bit more lenient, and Matt's still able to get his job done, or so he wouldn't be where he's at, and just recently gotten a promotion, but he also commits an immense amount of time into Ember, and so I think it's a great example of just taking something that's negative and looking at the good that came from it. And I don't know if you were working remote before then. Remote jobs were definitely popular, but would you agree that, like, COVID and everything else that went with that, amplified that to allow you the flexibility to do everything with Ember?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, like I think my job before COVID, I was always in the office, and I
Mm,
might have had like a day or two a week that I could work from home. But I don't think that there was ever a time where I physically needed to be in an office. So for
mhm,
me, that whole, um, you know, that whole situation, the silver lining was that I was able to transition to full-time remote and never go back. And I love it.
Awesome.
And, I'm not wasting hours and days of my life sitting in a car in traffic. It's like I
Hmm.
can wake up, get my coffee, do whatever, come to my computer, and like it takes me all of like 10 minutes to get ready for work instead of like, 1 to 2 hours commuting in or going through all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
no,
awesome.
the ability to work remote and be flexible is amazing. And
Yeah.
I could never see myself working somewhere where it was a strict 8 to 4, 9 to 5 kind of position.
Right. Right.
Life happens. You need to be able to handle it. And,
Yeah. And I know
you
there's
know,
probably been studies like on a lot of impact that it's had for people that are in remote jobs. Like, are they less stressed? Do they enjoy their job more because they don't have somebody breathing down their neck, or they don't have to sit in traffic and wake up that extra. They get a little bit more sleep. I mean, I'm sure there's been thousands of studies done at this point on the the benefits, and I'm sure there's drawbacks too. But like I said, if anything, I'm thankful that it's allowed you the flexibility to do what we've done. And even before this, Matt and I had worked together on some projects. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of add in for any listeners, just about your history and things like that?
no, that's pretty much it. I was just going to tag on one more thing with the remote work, is I think there's a lot of people. It really just comes down to the personal preference. There's still
Mhm.
people that would much rather be in an office, shoulder to shoulder with people.
Right.
And I get that. I'm a big people person, but I think that I'm able to adjust with that because, like, you and I, like, we're communicating all day long, and I do the same thing with my day job. Like, I'm in Slack constantly, so
Hmm.
I get that interaction with people without having to be standing physically next to them. And I think others, it's harder for them to do that, so they prefer to
Sure.
be in the office, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to throw that in there.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I think some people, it's like, people that exercise, right? Some people are just naturally motivated to work out at home. They could get their small weight bench out or their weight sets or do their video or whatever, they, watch an online YouTube video and do a workout. Where some people are like, I can never work out at home. Like I always want to go, I have to be in a gym. I just need to, escape my normal reality. And so, I know there's always going to be a, a variety out there, and people that kind of require different environments to be productive. So well, I'll use that to say, that to kind of shoehorn into really how Matt and I met, and then I'll jump to kind of what I've been doing. So um we met because I was honestly in need of a web developer. I've worked with a handful in my history as a creative professional, and our paths crossed. So before I jump into that, I guess I'll give you a quick background. Started my first business. Let's see, gosh, I went through a lot of jobs. Like I have kind of a blue collar heart and like work ethic, but like I I never got to the point of really being able to apply my brain on what I wanted to do for a living. Like when I was 18, 19, obviously your brain's still developing until you're, I don't know what it is, 22, 24, 25. But it was like I always had this like talent. Like I was a creative writer. I could draw, I could do all these things, but I just never hit this point of like, how can I make a living out of that? And I remember my dad actually, not to knock on him because he may listen to this, but I remember him telling me, he's like, you want to be a starving artist one day. And so I learned trades. I was a mechanic. I worked for a landscape yard, and I worked for a builder. Um, I worked in restaurant industry for many years. I did a lot of things, and it made me well rounded, but I just couldn't like find that core thing I wanted to do. And I remember I was working for very quick story. I was working for a builder, and he built multi-million-dollar homes. And so, I mean, I'm talking like monstrous houses, like beautiful homes. And I was working my way towards superintendent. I'd started as a punch out guy. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the guy that goes and makes sure that all the caulking's done, and, light switches are, not crooked, and all the screws are, you go around and make sure things are perfect, make sure the property's clean when the homeowners come by. And I remember he was building a house, and we had like 3 or 4 days straight of rain. And the guys that were working the basement, they were doing something down there. One of the crews had left the double doors open, and it was right next to a hill. And they're like 3 feet of mud went into like probably an 8,000 square foot basement, and maybe not that, maybe about 4,000 square feet, but it was 3 feet deep. And my job was to scrape that out. And I was like, that was that moment where I was like, there's more to life than this. I love hard work. I was in great shape, but I was like, I've got to find something. So I ended up working. My dad came from the consulting era and started a business in 1990, sold it in 2000, right before the market crashed, and the big .com boom and everything, and retired actually at 45 years old. And those are hard shoes to fill. And so when it came down to it, he reached into his network and said, hey, why don't we get you something in kind of the white collar sector and see if you like it? And I was like, cool. Went and actually worked in a network operations center, and was learning Cisco. I was learning all kinds of really cool techie stuff. So that's, again, another piece that kind of I feel helped make me more well-rounded. But it was there that I actually learned that I wanted to do design, because John, it's another John. My dad's name is John too. So he was the CEO of ITE, was the company at the time, down in Buckhead, down in Atlanta. And I remember him saying, he's like, JR, and he always called me JR. He goes, you can draw, right? And I was like, yeah, why? And he's like, we need a logo. And I was like, I've never designed a logo in my life. I want to say I was 21, maybe 20, just 22 ish, 23. I was like, man, I've never designed a logo in my life. I haven't even picked up, a colored pencil or a drawing tablet in forever. And he was like, well, see what you can do. So all I had was PowerPoint. And I went in Microsoft PowerPoint and I put all these shapes together. I put all these shapes together and created this like really crappy looking logo concept. It was like a blue box with this orange arrow going through it. Like, it's the stuff I look at now and I'm like, oh, everybody's got to start somewhere. And so I did that, and he sent that to a graphic designer. And that graphic designer name was Becky, I remember. And Becky brought that to life and showed me what it looked like polished. And then she, put it on business cards, and I got to see it embroidered on polos. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, that's super cool. Like, I actually got to take something and watch it come to life, but I want to be the one doing it. So I put myself through school, and worked there until I just couldn't take it anymore. Just could tell what I wanted to do. Started taking art classes through the Art Institute, and then went and worked in the healthcare sector, actually, as a production coordinator. That was my first like design production coordination type job. And that really taught me a lot of my core skill sets. But I had the meanest lady you could ever imagine being your boss. Like, dude, I was scared of this woman, and I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. I was scared of this woman. I was just like, Heather, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go into work. Like, I don't want to go in. And I remember I was like, I'm gonna start a freelance brand and start doing some design work on the side, make some extra money. Heather and I were looking to get married at the time, my wife. So fast forward, I started my first company in 2006, and but I thought it'd be helpful for you guys to know that I haven't despite that I've been drawing my whole life. Sometimes you kind of have to put yourself through life circumstances and really figure out who it is you want to be and what you want to bring to the world. And I'm glad I went through every one of those circumstances, because I learned a lot of skill sets, and I learned hobbies and things I'm still passionate about. So I started freelancing, built my first company in '06, scaled that up to about 4 full-time employees at the time. And that got acquired by an IT consulting company here in Atlanta in 2010 or 11, I believe. Apologize, but it was somewhere around there. And I think it was 2010 is when that got acquired. And I thought I was king of the world. I'm like, man, I'm 28 years old, and I'm going to work for this bigger company. I bolted on the creative division for them. Really, my background stemmed heavily from design, branding, web design. I was actually doing web development at the time myself, illustration, and I was doing photography. I was doing everything that could bring visual to a marketing strategy. Anything visual you could bring to it, I was bringing to the table through that agency. I learned how to build a business and how not to build a business, and learned that corporate structure that Matt really comes from through the agency side at that agency. For about almost 3 years, I was kind of the partner level, quote unquote, not quite partner level, but I had equity in the company. And started getting so big. I realized like, this is getting too corporate for me. Like, I missed my freedom, and I started my next one. And the path continued. I ended up getting headhunted through series of companies, and said no over and over until they said, name your price. And I did that, joined them, worked on additional teams. And again, I got pulled back to the entrepreneurial side of things. So that's like a real detailed background of where I come from, and what brought me here. Everything that I'm passionate about is bringing ideas to life. It's not just design. It's not just illustration. It's actually working with people, both in and outside of my team to listen to their ideas, listen to their listen to their fears, their concerns, their skepticism, like everything front to back, and being able to build confidence with them, with their vision, their dream, and actually help bring it to life. And so I'm blessed to be able to do that. Kind of getting into the DeFi space, with some opportunities Matt and I have worked on. But before that happened, Matt, I was looking for a developer. I was back on my own. I went on Google and I was like, I need a WordPress or a web developer, rather Shopify developer, excuse me. I need a Shopify developer. And I saw Matt's name pop up and he was like Shopify partner. I was like, okay, this guy's legit. He's local. I was like, I'm going to reach out to him. And the rest has kind of been history. We kept in touch for series of years and worked on some projects together. When it came into getting into the DeFi space, I was like, hey man, would you have any interest in this? He's like, actually, yeah, I really would. And that's what brought us here. So I know that was a little long-winded, but I think it again, just wanted you to have at least some well-rounded idea of what brought me here and why we came together to build something in this space. So so Matt, I mean, now that you're here, is there, and we've kind of arrived at this opportunity to build Ember, is there anything you wanted to speak about before we dive into that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of tack on the very end, the last thing you said about, being able to go with people and walk through their vision and help them kind of realize all of that. And I really wanted to point out that that's something that you and I have blended really well on. And you from the branded design side and me from the dev side and the user experience side, we've always been really big advocates for the end user, right? The person either in the community or the person using the website or the person trying to buy something from an e-commerce site we built. Like, no matter what it is, we're always trying to improve and really bring to life a process and a design and something that makes it special for that person using our product, right?
Right.
And I think that ties really strongly into what we're doing with Ember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you said it good. Like everything in this space that I've found is either ahead of what we came from, because it's DeFi, it's the future, it's things that we're still learning, or they're behind. And like I think that's what's really unique is I find myself, and I know you find yourself in an ecosystem where we feel like we're learning all these new things every day, but then we're looking at some antiquated processes and antiquated user experiences or antiquated or archaic, brand visuals or any, great concept, but God, it looks like a 4-year-old made it, or man, it looks really cool, but gosh, like how do you actually get to the finish line, on the flip side. So I think there's something to be said that, no matter what ecosystem you live in, like there's always going to be problems to solve. And I agree. I think we work really, really, really well with that. So like what got you, speaking of DeFi, like I know you touched on it in some of the AMAs we've done. Did you come from like this background of like, hey, I'd love to get into space one day, or were you more on like the consumer side in DeFi?
So I'm just, I think in the nature of what I do and my career path, I'm a very early adopter for most things technology. It doesn't matter if it's, solar, electric cars, new computers, new software, new smartphones, things like that. I've always been kind of a bleeding edge type person. And I started hearing about, Bitcoin, and I realized there were some crypto projects and things before that, but that was the first one that really, I think, started to pop up in articles that I was reading and things that I would hear from other colleagues and whatnot around the water cooler kind of conversations.
What was Bitcoin worth at that time? I'm genuinely curious.
It was like pennies. It was
Wow.
it was nothing.
Wow.
It was around 2010, and I started mining it. They were like, "Oh yeah, you just install the software, you hook up to this thing here, and your computer." Like I understood the part about how your graphics card essentially does like the math problems, and it figures out the blocks, and then it submits it for approval. Then, if your computer does it first or does it right or whatever, that you would get a percentage of it, or you might get rewarded in some way. And so like I kind of understood the rough idea behind that. I was like, okay, that sounds cool. So, at the time I just had like a little iMac, so I was like, okay, yeah. So I installed it, hooked it up, ran it. Sure enough, it was working.
That was it. That was you just plug and play. That was how.
Yeah, like you're talking about 30 minutes to an hour worth of work to kind of get it going.
Wow.
And like that was it. And
It's cool.
There was very little information out there about it, but I found a few articles that kind of walked me through it.
Hmm.
I think there was like a couple chat rooms or support or social that I reached out to a few people to like kind of get things going. But no, I mean, just kind of went along, and I don't honestly remember how much. I don't think I had a whole Bitcoin, or maybe I did. I honestly don't recall, but I remember like I did that for a few months. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like, all right, well, it's sucking up all my graphics card usage, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out for now. But I tried it out, and just kind of left it. Came back, I don't know, maybe 5 years later or something. Maybe it was less, maybe it
Oh,
was
you
more.
left it that long?
Yeah, like I just kind of like
Wow.
left it alone, and it wasn't, whatever I had, it wasn't worth a whole lot. But
Even 5 years
um,
later, I couldn't. I don't remember the forecast of, or I mean the history rather of what it was worth. At 2010 versus 2015, but
yeah,
had it not gone up in value much at that point?
uh, and I could be off on my years and all that. All I
Yeah.
remember is that whatever I had, I want to say it was worth around $500, maybe around 1,000, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
So I can go back and look at a chart later and figure out what I actually had and all that. But I probably don't want to. I might kick myself anymore. Um,
Yeah.
but all I remember is I was like, holy crap, like that thing that I spent like, a couple months on and didn't take me anything
Hmm.
and just had my computer doing some background processes is worth like actual money now. This is really cool. And so I sold it. And I think I went and bought like a nice keyboard that I wanted. And I might have like, spent some of it on, I don't know, something else, maybe a nice dinner. I don't remember. Um, and that was that. I went back to work and did some other things. And later on, I remember as Bitcoin, I think it was like around $10,000 a piece, and I was like, I found out through on an article or something. I was like, holy crap! I was like, man, why did I sell it? Like,
Yeah.
and I bought into it then, and really started digging into the others like Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple, and some of the others.
Hmm.
And through Coinbase, and really got kind of like not to the level of like certainly not a day trader, really not a big time investor, but like I threw like
Hmm.
$20 here, $50 here, $100 there, just kind of throwing some stuff in. And I remember the first December that it got up to around like 17, 18 grand. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, my few $100s had turned into a few thousand. I started mining like Ethereum and all this stuff. So it's just really intriguing. Long story short, kept with that kind of like that rate for a while.
Hmm.
Was always interested in it. Started to really learn about blockchain as a technology and Web3 and how that ties into everything. Um, and then you and I worked on a few projects together that were kind of along the same lines, where we
Hmm.
started to use your branding, your design, my development to bring another project to market.
Hmm.
And every day I worked on it, I learned more and more and more. It was so interesting about the utility, not behind a particular token, but I was always way more interested in blockchain as a whole. And like, this is the next big web thing, right? And that's from like more of a software development side in my mind and how it triggered. Um, yeah, that's kind of where it gets us today. And as far as my belief on where this can really go and how this is going to change the future. And no matter what token or what coin it is, blockchain as a whole is not going anywhere. I think you muted your mic there, JR.
Yeah, I clearly touched my microphone. I've got a mute here, and then I've got a mute at the bottom of my microphone that sneaks up on me. So sorry. Anyways, I think we come from somewhat similar backgrounds. I don't stem back that far in DeFi. I remember my buddy Ryan actually got me into it. He was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about crypto?" And I was like, "Oh man, I don't know. It seems scammy, and didn't know anything about it. I was a little ignorant at that time." And he was like, just start with $50 or $100 or whatever. And then we met people through gaming, funny enough, online playing like Call of Duty, and still buddy we're still friends with. And I think he may have invested in Ember. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. But DJ was his handle, DJ Peace of Mind, and so we get to know him, and he was really big into crypto. And I remember Ryan like, oh, we should really listen and follow him. So he ended up creating a Twitter account. I tried to go find it, see if I like turned it off or whatever, but it was the Kryptonite Squad, and like Kryptonite Squad, obviously super original, right? And I did this cool like Kryptonite logo for it, and gosh, for the sake of nostalgia, I may have to go find that. But we started this Twitter group, and it didn't get very far. Lasted a couple months, and we didn't keep up with it a whole lot, but I did learn my way through DeFi, and very, very, very high level. Understanding the difference in different altcoins and what utilities they were, and learning how to read charts and understanding all of these different dexes, many of which were scams that I've lost a lot of money on, but you live and learn. And so I remember I did it for a while, and then I was at a point where like we were going to build a house, and I was like, well, I'm gonna take out what I've earned. I think I started with like $100, and like I got upwards of 5 grand down to like one, and I think I left with about, I don't know, $700 or $800 like by the end of it, over the course of a couple years just dabbling in it. And it's clearly didn't do very well, but I was better than $100, I guess. So and that was in 2014 to 2017 ish, I want to say. So I left like $50 or like $100 sitting in ADA. Um, and I was like, oh, whatever, I'll leave this here. DJ always told me he was going to do really well, Cardano. And so I was like, whatever. So just a couple years ago, back in 2020, actually, is when I was like, man, I wonder if I have anything left. And I remembered I had left that Cardano in there. I went back and it was worth like, I don't know, whatever I had in there was worth like $1,000 or something. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So I was like, well, I'll take it out and see what I can do with it. It kind of got me back into it. I was in a little bit more mature, role in my life at that point, and older kids, and a different business at the time and whatever. So I was like, well, I'm in a different walk of life than I was then. So I was like, maybe I'll explore it some more. So I did, and kind of dabbled into it. And then obviously we had an opportunity to kind of get in the space professionally. And, Matt, you were clearly my first call. And we were able to kind of build a team and learn our way into the space. And that, some of the experiences we had there were building blocks to Ember. And, I think there's something to be said about the governance that is lacking in this space. And I think advisors like David and Stu and others that we have on our team, and we'll be talking to David next week heavily about a lot of this stuff next Thursday on our podcast. But we've learned a lot about the opportunities for governance in DeFi. It's like you get into the space, and it's like you don't know who you're dealing with. Where are these people from? Do they have a business? Can I ever get my money back? What if they steal it? How do I get a hold? It's like you when you fly through it, because your buddy told you to jump in, and he doesn't know much about it. It's the blind leading the blind, right? And I think there's so much of that exists out there, and that's what really prompted us to start Ember. There was just sometimes you have the wrong leaders and the wrong people, conducting the train. And before we found ourselves, getting into any projects as investors, or even as artists and developers, quote unquote, and consultants, we want to kind of know who we're working with. It's like, why not build a real business out of it? And that was really what we decided to do. We've all had our ups and downs in the space, but I think trying to be the light in, as we say, the dark alleys of crypto, like trying to bring goodness into the space and build a trust model with people, is very hard. It really is in DeFi. It's very hard because you've got I think, Matt, you'd agree, like you've got your gangs out there, if you will, people that are, oh, I'm a Ripple person for life, or I'm only ETH, or I'm a degen on the BSC or whatever. Like you have your micro cultures and your tribes. This goes to Seth Godin, one of my favorite marketers out there that I've read almost all his books. And it's like you have these tribes, right? And all these tribes are being led by the next person next to them. And I think, just like Seth says in his book, like, we need you to lead us. And I think that's a great opportunity. And that's what David with Blockstar has captivated in my mind. That's what he's captured and harnessed and is monetizing, and beyond the money aspect is creating something so amazing in the space. And for us to kind of learn from somebody like him, we have a lot of growth to happen. So, I mean, now that we kind of know where we've come from, and anybody listening in kind of understands our background, what got us into DeFi, and really who we've surrounded ourselves with Ember, where do you find your role right now in Ember? And honest question, I probably never even asked you, where do you want to see your role in 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's I mean that's something I've thought about honestly ever since we started Ember. Um, was was really like what do we want this to be, right? I think right off the cuff, you and I knew that we wanted an agency. We saw a big gap in the space. There were so many other projects out there that had, you know, kind of average marketing. The websites were really cookie cutter or really poorly put together templates. The stuff that you and I had done for a couple other projects, it was on such another level higher in quality and really the breadth and the depth that we were able to reach with that project.
You hear that word, David?
Um,
If you're listening in, Brett.
breadth and depth. It's good to have both, a little bit of
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
You want a T, but no, I think something that JR that you and I realized was seeing how much was needed, and there wasn't any really good quality stuff because the crypto projects out there, it was mostly the same people. Like they were kind of doing it all for their own project, and that was it. There wasn't agencies that were really trying to help others. So we knew we wanted to do that, right? And then it turned into kind of a kind of like a Shark Tank esque almost for anybody that's based in the U.S. I don't know if it's something that's worldwide or not, but we wanted to be able to help other communities and help other projects, either ones that were in trouble, giving them advice, consulting, advisory, recovery, and for new ones that are starting off, like, hey, these are the things that you want to avoid. These are the things that are good, and just trying to help guide other projects in the space. Because again, if blockchain technology is the next big thing, and it is so vast, and it can be like it can improve so much infrastructure that we have in today's technology, that it's not like we're fighting against each other, right? There's room for everybody. Like you've got, if you've got somebody that's a lawyer and they've got a law firm and they're wanting to do some of their legal contracts as an NFT that can be used and tracked very easily and can't be altered, they're not going to be competing with somebody that's in car sales that wants to be able to buy and sell cars with a NFT contract that can't be changed and you can trace the the origin and who's got it, who currently owns it, right? Like
Right.
there's so much room for everybody to be able to do this. So instead of trying to like be closed off and like, no, it's my precious, I have everything and you can't have any of it, we should get out there and be helping one another to really expand the availability of, like, all it takes is one time to build this particular contract, and then everybody else that wants to do that can do that, right? As long as it's done right and securely and safely. You build something one time and you really can reuse it.
Right.
So with that kind of ties into 5 years from now, where did I see myself with this? Was really the not only as a 50-50 co-founder with you, JR, but as more of like a head of development at CTO level.
Sure.
And I get that we're starting small, and I don't have personally CTO experience at another company, but that's the process for my career path, and the natural progression to it is going through the software arm, into the management arm, into the
Right.
The upper visionary aspect. And since this is a company that you and I started together, it's easy to slap the title on there. But I think what I'm really trying to bring to it is that visionary aspect, that long-term growth and idea around where is this going, and really leading that charge. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think anybody listening can always expect to hear a dose of humble pie with Matt and I. There's a few things we can kind of touch on there, right? So, here you are, going out of your way, outside of your day job, spending time away from your family, away from other clients that you've built over the years with your other company, to bring something good to the space that's doing well given the fact that we're in a bear market and everything's kind of on fire around us at the moment. And this is November. What are we at? November 10th, 2022. Just as a reminder. So, but it's I think there's something to be said about knowing your place, and if anybody understands that, it's definitely me. I've been an owner operator in my business for many years and multiple businesses. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've started up, got probably over half a dozen companies. Some have done really well and some have not. And that's just sometimes it's because bad decisions I made, or lack of experience, and sometimes it was other people I was in business with that didn't have the same ideals and same vision, and there was a misalignment there. And so never, obviously with Matt, I never have to worry about that, and he's the same with me, and that's why we complement each other. We're not we're not two we're not two equals looking to create three lines, if you will, right? And equals is is always going to be two lines, right? um, we are we come from different, we come from different environments, different ecosystems, different experience levels, different perspectives, different, a lot of things, and sometimes those opposites really attract and create something good. um, and so I'm realizing how dumb my equals metaphor was, but it's kind of funny. Like an equals only has two lines. So point is when you come together and build something amazing, like we're in the process of building, it's important to surround yourself with not just like-minded people, because you want that linear growth, you want that fluidity, but contrasting, people that you wouldn't maybe normally associate yourself with, or you would have never crossed paths with. That's what's cool about DeFi. We'll get into that in a minute. But I think one of the most important things about what you said was just like, you know, uh, was where you find yourself now, like as a CTO, and I feel the same way. Carrying this label as a CEO, right? Like I embrace change, education, and humility every single day, because no matter what I try to fill, as far as gaps or deliverables or leadership or advisory or anything I'm trying to do, I always keep a good pocket there to learn and make sure I'm listening, and I'm listening with no ego, with no pride, and no preset expectation. Right? It's open eyes, open heart, and so. I think the most important thing we did was being able, was positioning ourselves to listen and surround ourselves with really, really smart, experienced, educated people, that come from a lot of different walks of life. Our advisory team is not all in blockchain. For any of those you listening, like, some of them, one of them is my personal business mentor that I just valued that much. He put that much time into me over the years that I wanted to put it, back into him, and bring him into this opportunity to help advise others, because I respect him that much, right? I listen. I don't feel like I've always had the answers, and he's helped build those answers or provide them to me over the years. Others that are C-level executives, and others that are, younger than Matt and I, but are really, really good, at what they do, and they're confident, and our personalities all kind of like are in this big melting pot. And so I think there's something really magical about that when you bring someone like, especially, David aboard. If you would have told me when I first met David, I guess probably earlier this year in 2022, to ever think that he would have any part in advising something that Matt and I were going to build together, I would have been like, yeah, in a million years. Like when maybe when other dreams come true, and hell freezes over, right? Because we knew he was busy, but he was a really well respected dev in the space, and we've been blessed with his leadership, and it's helping us grow. Because I don't feel ignorant, I don't feel defeated, I don't feel out of place claiming a role or a title, because that title comes with responsibility, and that responsibility is to make sure I'm always learning. And Matt, I know you share the same sentiments. So I think that hearing you say that was really, I haven't heard you say it from that aspect before, but it was really powerful to hear, because in my head I feel the same way. I'm like, man, I'm a serial entrepreneur with an aggressive heart towards the things that I love and serving people, and that doesn't necessarily constitute the right experience to fill the shoes of a CEO. But I have listened to our advisors, and I'm going to continue to listen to our advisors and those in my life who've poured time into me, and Matt as well, to make sure that we continue to grow as leaders, as business professionals, and as servants in the space, with a very aggressive mission to grow a very sustainable long-term business. So anything you want to add to that, Matt?
Yeah, I just it's important to be a constant learner, and I think you and I are both that in spades. Um, we're trying to grow constantly, always improve, always learn from our mistakes and how we can, better ourselves, better those around us, better what we're working on. And advisory, you've always really hammered that home, and it's so important. Like, we are not going to have all the answers right out of the gate, but the fact that we're willing to listen to other people that may have the answers, or at least have a different outlook or view on things, we're able to come to those decisions together, and we're able to to listen and to really take that in, and really get a good understanding of it, and then we move on. And
Absolutely.
even if we make the wrong mistake or we do the wrong thing, we're quick to address it, change
Hmm.
it, adjust. We're very easy to pivot, and we're not stuck in our ways so much of like, no, it's my way or the highway. It's, yeah, we should have done something different there, but now we know, and now
Hmm.
we can take that knowledge and bring it to
Sure.
others as well.
So, with that said, what is one thing that you actually, we'll do two things. So, first, what is one thing that you have learned about yourself after launching Ember and getting behind, a token that found some immediate, aggressive success and kind of came back down to earth and is still sitting north of where we started very, very strongly, even considering the burning fire around us. What is one thing that you feel like you've learned about yourself in this process, good, bad, or indifferent, since you started Ember?
That's yeah, that's a
Put
good
you on the
question to
spot.
throw out there. Yeah, put me on the spot. No, I think one thing that I've learned is in the face of, let's say, early on, and even throughout the entire project, how we respond to success.
Hmm.
It doesn't make us a different person. All it does is it furthers and more drastically shows our true colors and our personality, who we are, right?
Well
Like,
said.
we we 100x within 2 weeks, right? And so, you and I didn't have team wallets, we didn't have personal bags. We only put in,
Mhm.
maybe a couple $1,000 if we were lucky. But even when it was at its absolute peak, you and I were not like, oh, sweet, we did it. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and sell some stuff, and take some money and go buy a Lambo, right? Like, that is not you and I. That's not our personalities. It's not how
Not at
we
all.
that has never been an inkling in our mind. But at the same time, like in the back of my head, like way far back, I'm like, if I had $1 million tomorrow, what would I do?
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that my stuff got to $1 million, because it didn't get that high, even at the peak. But even, I think, if it had gotten to that level, my
Sure.
answer would be the same: is treat it responsibly, right? This is a long-term project. This is something that we want to be going 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, because I really, really, really believe in the space. So
Hmm.
no matter
Hmm.
how many times people were like, just sell a little bit, just take some profits, my answer was a straight and
Yeah.
resounding no. There's no point in selling this for 10 cents now if I know it could be worth $100 in 10 years from now, right?
Right.
Like, I put in all that I could, and I plan on leaving it all there until, like, until it's worth so much that I basically can just live off of the reflections, just about,
Hmm. It's
and
awesome.
that's, yeah. So that's something that I wasn't. I felt pretty deeply that that's how I would treat it, but even when it was worth, at the peak 100 times of what I put in, I
Hmm.
still felt strongly. I was like, that's great,
Yeah.
keep on going. Like, I'm not looking to take it out and pay off my car or anything.
Sure.
So
Not
that's
smart.
something I learned.
That's really great. Anybody listening, that's a really powerful perspective. Like, with I think what did Spider-Man say? Or Uncle Ben say to Spider-Man, "With great power comes great responsibility." Is that right?
Yep, that's it. You got it
And
right.
yeah, a big Marvel nerd over here. I know Matt. Matt
I
and
do
I,
both,
yeah,
like
he's
Marvel
DC
and
and
DC.
Marvel. So, but I'll ask myself the same question and answer it. And mine's actually really simple. I learned to trust people again. What I mean by that is very, very. There's not a lot of depth behind it, other than the fact that I've just been in business with the wrong people at times throughout my life, and I when you run a business, which I haven't been like this for years, as far as running a business. My first company before it got acquired, I felt like a king, right? I was like, oh, I'm the king of my castle. Oh, I've grown this business. I have 4 full-time employees. I've got, I'm pushing, high six figures in revenue from, my third year in business in my mid 20s. I thought I had conquered the world. And with that came this, it wasn't even an ego. It was just this mindset of like, I got it figured out. And not from an egotistical standpoint, but like, almost projecting, like, and feeling like, oh well, the people that said they were going to help me, or people that didn't believe in me, here's a middle finger, and I'm gonna show you that, because it became about confidence, but that confidence can turn to arrogance really quickly. And throughout the years, once I got out of that business and into a corporate environment, and then back on my own, I realized, like, just in many facets, that I was having trust issues with people, because I would put my time into something. I pour my time into a project, pro bono, sweat equity. Like, hey, we've known each other our whole lives. Like, I'm going to bring you in, and we're going to do this together. And it actually happened in 2014. I started a viral clothing brand, almost viral, not by the actual term viral, but about 10 points shy of it. And it did six figures in its first month of business. And we caught the attention of Pepsi and Panama City Beach down in Florida, south of us. And actually went to go do a military appreciation tent for the Gulf Coast Jam. And I mean, we were 3 months in business. And so the people I brought into that, who had never done anything like that before, I needed growth. I knew that I needed to learn to trust people again. Brought those people in. Long story short, I had set up all of the governance and structure, right? I had set up the brand and the print files for our shirts, and the vendors and the marketing and the legal and everything else. Like, I created this awesome pocket of this network. They voted me out of my own company. They all rallied against me and voted me out of my own company. And when I went to them, I can't even put into words. I was like, you've been one of my best friends since high school. Like, why would you do this to me? And they're like, well, we just don't need you anymore. And I'm like, and meanwhile, I was reinvesting all my money back in the business that were my allocations, and come to find out they were all paying themselves. And they had already moved the bank account into an attorney's name. And I said, did I do something wrong? They're like, no, we just, you have to, we're afraid you're gonna have too much going on with your other clients. And you kind of got us where we need you. And it ruined friendships. And I forgave those people long time ago. But the reason I bring that up is, like, I've learned the importance of learning to trust people again, and also governance, right? And that's, that brings us to Ember, right? Like, we started this, and when you enter the space, you don't really know what it's going to be. You have this preconceived, like, notion in your head of, like, okay, I'm going to be designing, and I'm going to be meeting these new people, and I'm going to be answering questions, and I'm going to be, watching our token and see how it's going to grow. And we're going to be introducing our services to the ecosystem. But then you find yourself, realizing you can't do it all. And as I said a minute ago, or as Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think the biggest responsibility that I've learned, I'll say it again, is just learning to trust people. And when we launched, within 3 days, we were met at the door with a global network of over a dozen people across almost a dozen time zones that were like, put us to work. Like, how can we help? We want this thing to be successful. Hey, by the way, this is my name. And it was like, holy crap. Many entrepreneurs, businesses spent all these years building and growing and refining and earning and learning and mentoring and failing and all this, just to gain global exposure, right? When you think about it, most businesses, Coca-Cola didn't launch and they were a global business in a week or a day. And you launch in the space, and immediately you have a global audience. And with that comes a lot of, barriers, but those barriers become opportunities. And if we looked at them as barriers, we wouldn't learn to trust people, right? And so I think what I found in it, that still just gives me peace of mind, no matter what the chart looks like or what the market looks like, gives me peace of mind to say, I've learned to trust people again, and these people have earned my trust. And I hope that I've earned theirs. We're going to continue to earn theirs. They know we're not going anywhere. Matt and I have a long-term vision here. We're surrounded by some of the smartest people I've ever done business with. And we're then surrounded even further by some of the most selfless, thoughtful, hardworking people who are giving their time, even when we've offered to pay to say, "Oh no, we don't want it. We don't want it." And those are our mods. Those are, those are people in our community. Those are people that showed up at our first live event that we did, and it's a great feeling to learn to trust people again. I know that's a long-winded a way of saying that, but I think again, just for context, it's helpful to know. We all go through circumstances in life. We all come across people that we like at face value, but sometimes they may be out of their realm and can drive failure within themselves or failure within those around them. And Matt and I know you and I have experienced that together in business in this space, and to turn something good out of that and then be surrounded by people that we can trust was like, this is, we're not worthy, like we it's like that is the one thing I take away, is that I feel like in the first time in my 39 years of existence, that I feel like I've truly learned that I can trust people again, but govern it with the right protection and make sure I'm protected, and Matt, that you're protected, and our clients are protected, and our investors are protected, and making sure we surround ourselves with greatness. So I'll end it with that. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I think, there are good people in the space, and it's all about finding them. And when you do, you band together. There's a movie and a show, Band of Brothers,
Hmm.
and that's very much how it feels. And even though there are some women in the group, it feels like that camaraderie, right? We're hooking
Yeah,
arm in arm, and we're stronger together than we are by
sure.
ourselves. And I couldn't have said it better.
No, I love it, man. I love it. Well, um, big thank you, to those who we have been able to surround ourselves with. One of them who has been a big motivator of yours and mine, I know, is David Hunter. David has stuck his neck out over and over, and um, you know, basically put in time where he didn't need to, because he's already instituted his value. He's already staked his claim in the space, and he doesn't traditionally have time for pop up opportunities, right? And I think the fact that he used this opportunity to kind of get to know you and I, and help strengthen us. We're going to be able to reciprocate that back later this year and into 2023, and there's more to come on that in a future podcast, as we start to peel layers of that onion back. But regardless, this has been, I think, a great opportunity for people to learn about us, a little bit of our background. Matt, thanks for carving the time out. I know we both have families to tend to, and I'm grateful that I get to share this journey with you, obviously, and everybody else listening. I think you share the same sentiments. So, with that
Yeah,
said,
likewise.
yeah. So that said, I do want to thank you guys, for listening in on today's podcast. In this volatile world of DeFi, we are the constant. That is our tagline. All it means is we're committed. We are committed. We are committed to greatness. Relentless, unapologetic commitment to greatness and excellence. Not just for our team, not just for our families, but our clients and our investors. And I hope you can hear that in the words we speak, the visuals we produce, the statements we make, the time we put into our community. If you're new to the space or you're new to us, I just ask that you make sure to go in and spend some time in Telegram, and go create an account on Blockstar. World. That is going to be our ecosystem as we grow under David and his business. And so lot to come there. But in the meantime, if you want to get to know us a little bit better, I definitely would invite you to come join us, hang out with us in Telegram. We tend to have a lot of fun and poke at each other and keep each other on edge. So before I close out, Matt, could you tell me, not tell me, tell our listeners maybe three things that you love or that you enjoy doing outside of DeFi and outside of your work life?
Yeah, so I'm a really big outdoors person. I love being able to use my hands and get dirty and like build stuff and work on cars and things like that. Like most of my life I've been sitting at a computer desk, still looking at a screen. And so when I have an opportunity to actually go on a hike, go outdoors, go camping, go do some activity, go build something, whether it be a house or a small project or work on the car. Like I really enjoy being able to get away from the screen. So I'd say
That's awesome.
that's probably at my core something I really enjoy.
I love it.
How
I
about
love
you?
it. It's funny. It's very, very quickly going back to the things that I learned through life that became hobbies. It's there's reasons I'm glad I went through them because there's still things I enjoy doing. And much like you, I have a blue collar heart and honestly, a blue collar mindset sometimes in business where I just love to produce. I love to manufacture and create. But when I can't do that in business, I do enjoy working with my hands. You'll find me renovating my own home. I this barn that I'm in started as an empty shell. I have put a lot of the lighting in. I've laid floors. I have customized it. I have laid paneling on our ceiling. I have done lots of things. So I do enjoy. I think in another life I would have been a builder. I would have been a general contractor and stayed with that industry had I not been shoveling out 3 feet of mud in a basement for 2 straight days with a broken back. Outside of that, I'm a gearhead. I'm an absolute gearhead. So everything from working with buddies of mine who do it for a living and helping them take motors apart to building rock crawlers. I've always been a big off-road redneck nerd. My heart is as much as you can believe that. I love the tech side of my life. I love the digital side of my life, but I love the outdoors. Being able to go and crawl up in something big and brawny and go tackle some terrain. So, wish I had time to go wheeling the way that I used to. I used to have a 1 ton rock crawler. I always had a lot of fun out in the woods doing that kind of thing. And then outside of that, just being a devoted husband, not to champion myself here or anything like that. I think we all should strive for that and for those of you that have kids out there, life goes by very fast and I'm watching my girls, I'm watching my girls. I'm a father of twins, and I'm watching them growing up quick. So I really enjoy spending time with them any second I get that I can get up from this chair. So I think we share that sentiment. You're a very devoted father, Matt, and you love the outdoors as much as I do. And I think that's another cool thing we share together. So
Yeah, I pretty much 6 hours today away from the screen, running around with my two youngest kids and
that's
working
awesome.
on the house. So yeah,
I love it.
absolutely.
That's great. Well, today has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys have found something enjoyable out of it that are listening in. Appreciate you tuning in, and obviously, as I said, hop in chat and bring us your questions if you have them. So, again, in this volatile world of DeFi we live in, this dumpster fire that we're kind of navigating through, we are the constant. That's what Ember's commitment is, and we have a very relentless, unapologetic commitment to excellence. We want to continue to grow, earn your trust, earn your business, and keep growing. So, on behalf of Ember Agency and Ember Token, I invite you to come and tune in next week as we dive into blockchain. That'll be episode 3 next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. UTC. And we're going to have not just a very special guest, but a very special gentleman in our life, Mr. David Hunter himself, hopping on there talking about his experience in blockchain. And we get to kind of ask some really fun questions that I think a lot of us want to know. So I'll leave it at that. And can't wait to dive into that with David next week. So with that, I'll just leave you with my final words of wisdom. Every day is a new chance to be better than you were the day before. That is just a reminder for you to get over your failures, get over your fears, brush it under the rug, and just start over the next day. Every single day is a blessing, and just chin up and eyes forward, as I've had to tell myself for many years. So that is my last words of wisdom for the night. I thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to catching up with you guys next week. God bless.